Hello, logic up people that likes to use their brain to think things through and to analyze things to make sure that they can come up with a logical conclusion to what they, how they assess the world around them. That's the purpose of my channel, is to encourage people to use their brain and to logicize, what I call, is to use logic based on evidence to figure out what's going on, rather than listening to authorities. And doesn't matter if the authorities have degrees or many degrees or credentials. Yes, you take them more seriously than those that don't, but ultimately they have to prove their point too. They have to give evidence too. They can't just claim something without evidence, or laugh at something and everybody else follow and don't ask questions. Notice that whenever authorities laugh at something, they're hiding something. Okay, they try to laugh at it so that you laugh at it, so that you don't have to question it, and there you go. The subject is buried. You see that? Beware, beware. Okay. Anyways, the subject for today is a fun one. It's the subject of who built UFOs, part Deux, part 2. I made a video about who built UFOs. In my first video, I talked about the evidence that shows nowadays we have enough evidence that show that humans didn't build UFOs. Okay, that is now established. Even our government say so. They admit that they didn't build the UFOs. Okay, U.S. government. That's right. And they also said they don't know who built it. Okay. Thirdly, they also said that they don't rule out extraterrestrials. Okay. They don't rule out extraterrestrials. But they stopped short of saying UFOs were built by extraterrestrials. Why? Because there's no direct evidence. Direct meaning they don't have, or at least they don't admit that they have on hand those flying machines. Okay, those flying objects. At least they don't admit. Some people say they do have in their possession, but that's why they stopped short of admitting, but they didn't rule it out. Okay, now that's a big contrast with the past, where the government outright dismissed it as a fantasy, you know, strange objects in the sky, hallucinations, mass hallucinations, swamp gas, cloud formation, the planet Venus, anything that they can say to explain it away. And a lot of people believe them. For the past 70 years, a lot of people believe them. And even today, people that have not been keeping up with the latest evidence that came out, they also dismiss it right away and just laugh and think it's, you know, it's a joke. But the joke is really on them, because they haven't been paying attention to the latest evidence that came out. Verified evidence. These are not just, just another guy that got drunk that saw it. You know, no. This has been detected by multi-billion-dollar military equipment. Okay, using multiple sensors of different designs. Okay, one thing about the military is that a lot of their equipment are of different design and using different sensors with different ways of looking at things, because they want to verify. Okay, they want to gauge if two different sensors say something exists, then it must exist. Okay, there's no anomaly, right? If a sensor of one design, if you have many sensors of one design, if there's a flaw in it, and if they're built the same way, of course all the sensors will tell you erroneous information. But if you have sensors of different design using different parts of the electromagnetic waves and even different waveforms like sound waves, and they all tell you the same, then whatever they detect is real, meaning it's there. It's not a mirage, it's not hallucination, it's not a cloud formation, not anything like that. It's a real solid object that's out there. Okay, so we've reached that point now. It's no longer, you know, hallucination. It's no longer a mirage. Okay, it's no longer natural objects. Okay, and we covered that in the last video. Okay, but I implied in the last video that okay, it's not built by humans. Okay, most people will immediately jump to the conclusion that then you believe that it's built by extraterrestrials, meaning aliens, meaning intelligent creatures from outside Earth. Okay, but is it? And what is the evidence for that or against that? Now, the other day I saw a video that claimed something that I thought was really out there without any evidence, and I don't even know why this scientist, he's a biologist, so for him to claim this is out of his background, okay, educational background. But I don't even know why he claimed it, because there's really no evidence. He claimed that there's a video of an object that takes off real fast. Okay, it floats over from the right of the screen. It stopped, and then all of a sudden it takes off real fast. It vertically, it went vertically real fast. Okay, into the atmosphere. And so this scientist, this biologist, claimed that, well, that's humans from the future, warp speed back in time and all that. I'm like, okay, where do you get that? Okay, what is the evidence that tells you that? The only thing you see, is an object, that just went very fast. How do you get from an object that went very fast to warp speed and to come from the future and it's built by humans in the future? It makes no sense. You see that? Okay. See, this is why gotta be careful. When it comes to subjects like this. If you want to really get to the bottom of it and find out what the heck is a UFO, what is it? Okay, it's an unidentified flying object. Yeah, it's a flying object because we see it flying, so it's real, right? We detect it using multiple sensors, multi-billion-dollar sensors, like the Spy 1 radar on the Navy ship that can detect an object the size of a baseball at 80,000 feet. Okay, it's a digital radar system. It's called a phased array. Okay, a phased array can can detect many objects at the same time in different directions because they steer electronically. Okay, no longer like before where they have a radar sweep, right? They have an antenna that spins around. Okay, so it spins across the sky and detects something. Okay, and then you have to wait for it to spin around again to detect it again. Okay, today's radar is flat panel. Okay, and it has tiny transceivers. Okay, the transmitter and receivers, thousands of tiny ones that emit radio waves to detect these, and so they can steer the radio waves very, very quickly and detect like hundreds of objects at the same time. Okay, they do that, very, very quickly. Okay, it's extremely sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar radar equipment, the most sophisticated in the history of humankind. Okay, in the history, and the most powerful also. Okay, all right, built in the United States. All right, so we're not talking about some third world country now. All right, we're talking about first-rate technology here, cutting-edge, first-rate technology. Okay, so the Spy 1 radar detects such objects. Okay, not only that, infrared radar, infrared sensors. Okay, infrared spectrum is a different part of the of electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, electromagnetic spectrum consists of light waves, which we can see. That's part of the electromagnetic spectrum. But then you have radio wave, you have X-rays, you have infrared rays. Okay, all those are different frequencies of the same spectrum, and you need different instruments to detect those frequencies. Okay, so when two different instruments detect two different parts of electromagnetic spectrum, and they agree, that means something is really there. Okay, and when these things plunge into the water, sonar from the nuclear submarines, U.S. nuclear submarines underwater detect these things using sonar, and they detect these things going through the water underwater at 500 miles an hour. You know how fast that is? 500 miles an hour is the speed of an airliner. Okay, the fastest ship we have can only go maybe 30 knots, about 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, if that. Okay, that's it, not 500. Okay, These things travel at 500 miles an hour underwater, okay? So there ain't no way we know how to do that, all right? We don't know how to do that, okay, humans. So that's why the conclusion must be, it has to be, that we didn't build it. The humans did not build that, okay? All right, now back to what I was saying. Now, who built it? Okay, who built it? Who built UFOs? Okay, one possibility is, of course, it came from outer space. You know, some intelligent civilization from outer space built it, came down here, you know, visit Earth and study Earth and all that stuff. Another possibility that I haven't heard anybody say, except me. Okay, wild possibility, but it could be. Okay, and I provide some evidence. Okay, although not weak evidence, but there's still evidence. Okay, anybody ever consider that flying saucers were not built by aliens or extraterrestrials, nor humans, but another civilization, intelligent civilization from Earth that have lived underwater, under the ocean all this time? Okay, now that's hard to believe, because we have satellite images that take, you know, pictures of the Earth from space. How come we never detected these things? You know, we have evolved. Our civilization has been around for thousands of years. Caveman, you know, early humans been around for a few million years. You know, we evolved to modern humans. How come we never interacted with these things, these other civilizations, or did we? Okay, here's my theory. When the dinosaurs were killed by the asteroid that hit the Earth, or asteroids, okay, I don't believe there's only one that hit the Earth at the time. There were many. Okay, look at the surface of the moon. Look at how many craters hit the moon. So throughout Earth's history, there were many asteroids and meteors that hit Earth. Space rocks, all right, of all sizes hit Earth. Some as large as a mountain, probably. Okay. And so one of them was big enough, or a few of them were big enough to destroy the dinosaur, destroy most life on Earth, most land life on Earth at that time, about 65 million years ago. Okay, we talk about it's related to, you know, why dinosaurs were so big back then, but that's another video that I already made if you want to take a look at that. Okay, so what happened when the asteroids hit Earth? It created like a nuclear winter. Okay, it covered the Earth with dust and, you know, Earth that were kicked up into the atmosphere, and it created it blocked out the sun, and no energy, no sun hit Earth, no sun rays hit Earth for like millions of years. All the plants die, all the animals that eat the plants die, all the other animals that eat those animals die, and so most animals on Earth at that time, on land, died off. The only ones that survived are the little tiny creatures, that rodents, you know, that became humans later, you know, evolved into bigger mammals later, and sea life. Okay, so you got sharks that's been around, you know, a long time, relatively unchanged, you know, for 250 million years. I mean, sharks were around, and they were bigger back then too. Sharks were around probably when the dinosaurs were around. Okay, and a lot of sea creatures we see today were around then too. So the only animals that survived were the ones in the ocean. Now, here's my theory. Okay, some of the smaller reptiles, okay, escape into the ocean, especially the amphibious ones, okay, ones that live half on land, half on water. They escape into the ocean, and they evolved over 65 million years, people, okay? 65 million years. Not a few millions like human, right? 65 million to become these so-called aliens, okay, that built UFOs, that built flying saucers. Okay, 65 million years is a long time. It's a lot longer than humans. Okay, here's the evidence. Okay, one, UFOs have been observed to plunge into the ocean all the time. You know, so the theory is that they could have bases in the ocean. But my theory is that it's not just their bases, it's their home all this time, right? They live down there, deep in the ocean. Here's another evidence. People that have seen these creatures describe them as grayish in color. They're not little green men. Little green man was invented in science fiction, Hollywood, a long time ago, and it kind of stuck. But these things are not green, they're gray. Sort of like dolphins, okay? Dolphins are gray, right? Okay, dolphins live in the ocean, right? All right, you see that? And because they live deep in the ocean, their eyes are huge. And because, they have to gather more light in order to see. Deep in the ocean, there's very little light. So that's why their eyes have to be very big. They have no hair on their body, like dolphins. They're grayish in color, okay? So that's it. My other explanation of where these things could have came from, who built the UFOs, could just be these creatures that have lived under the ocean all these millions of years after the dinosaurs died, and they evolved into the ones we see today. Now, of course, they didn't look like that back then. Of course, just like humans, we don't look like Australopithecus, which looks sort of like a monkey, right? We don't look like them, like that. Okay, we don't look like rodents. But if you trace back to a genetic line, we're mammals, okay? So, but we don't look anything like that. We don't have hair all over our body. At least most of us don't. Most of us don't. Some of us do. Most don't, okay? We don't look like monkeys, right? We don't have hair all over our body, or orangutan, okay? We more or less clean cut, okay? Our face doesn't have much hair on it. Men, yeah, some men have a lot of hair, but women don't. So, not so much hair that cover their face, that you actually see. So therefore, I think it's possible that some prehistoric small reptiles escaped into the ocean and evolved to the ETs, the aliens, quote unquote aliens, that built UFOs. Okay, and then because they been around a long time, 65 million years evolution, their technology is extremely advanced. Okay, and so that's why you see them plunge into the ocean. Could be, don't know. That's just somebody need to study that possibility and maybe conduct some experiments, design some experiments to conduct it to see if it's really possible for something to evolve in the ocean like that into the kind of intelligence that that could build flying machines like that. So just another possibility. We got to keep our mind open, right? And look at introduce hypothesis using imagination, right? That's why imagination is also important in science. But in order to pin it down, to really consider it facts or proven, you got to have evidence, right? You got to have evidence, because right now all we have in any theory, in any explanation concerning UFOs, is all we have is a hypothesis, theory at best. But nobody can be sure of anything. All right, we are sure now with all the evidence that these things are not hallucinations. They're real in terms of they are physical objects. Okay, not real in terms of they are flying spaceships from another planet. Not real in that terms, but real in terms of they are there for real. Okay, they are physical objects. Now, I even go so far as saying that there's evidence also to prove that they are flying machines of some sort. They are intelligently controlled machines. Okay, how do we know that? Because the U.S. Navy chased after them, and they respond. Okay, not only the U.S. Navy recently, 2004, 2015, but also other military from around the world. We got Italian military, we got Belgium military, we got Chinese military, we got British military, we got Brazilian military, we got Iranian military that chased after UFO back in the early 1970s. So all these militaries chase after these. Why military? Because they have the equipment to see these things more often, right? They fly more often, and they fly far and fast and high and all that stuff. And they fly out there where there are no civilians, few civilians around. So of course they see these things more often. Okay, so it's safe to say that these things are, because they respond to when approached. So that proves that they intelligently control. They are not natural objects that fell out of the sky or got spew out of a volcano and just so happen to travel in an arc. No, these things actually flew around our fighters. Okay, they follow our fighters and flew around in circles twice. So that proves that it's not an anomaly. If it's just an anomaly, then like a rock being thrown out of the volcano or something because of the eruption, then it can only go around once, if that. Okay, or it goes around in an arc and that's it, and it falls to the ground. It doesn't go around twice and then fly past the window, the canopy of a fighter jet. Okay, and then stay in one location, while after that. Okay, that marks 1, intelligent control, 2, internal power. Okay, natural objects do not have internal power, and they don't fly around at will. There's no will because it's natural. Okay, it's subjected to the force of gravity, the force of the wind, what have you. Okay, inertia, what have you. But these things fly against those things, those forces. So therefore, you got to conclude that they are not natural. They are artificially built machines. Now, then the question becomes, well, who built these things? Well, we humans didn't build it because we don't have such a technology. We don't have any physics that can explain that, actually, because these things don't fly using the same principles that our aircraft fly. The only principles that we know of that will allow us to build aircraft are 2 main principles, and that is Bernoulli's principle and Newton's third law of motion. Okay, those 2 principles govern all aircraft, all human-built aircraft. We have no other way of making an object fly in the sky other than using those 2 principles. That's it. UFOs, whatever these things are, do not use any of those principles. They don't spew out exhaust. Okay, they don't have any propellers. Okay, they fly against the wind. All right, they can stay aloft for weeks on end without refueling. Okay, we don't have an aircraft, a self-powered, heavier than air aircraft that can do that. We have balloons that can stay up high, but that's not because of the internal energies, because of its light weight. Okay, and of course balloons cannot willfully steer itself, or steer themselves at will. Balloons can't go against the wind. Okay, these things go against the wind. So that proves right there that these things have internal power that push themselves against the wind somehow. Okay, we see no exhaust, and these things don't produce heat. Like our engines. All human built engines produce heat. These things don't emit heat. Okay, well, that's why we're like, no, there's no way humans built those things. So again, you got to use logic. You got to use your brain. Okay, don't just dismiss something because some authority said so, or you heard it 10,000 years ago. You heard it as a kid, and now you're 60 years old. Okay, and then you repeat back. You parrot the same phrase that you were told 10,000 years ago. Oh, these are swamp gas. Ha ha ha. You must be smoking something. Some idiotic things like that. I laugh at those people now because they have their head in the sand all these decades, right? They sound pretty stupid, I think. Okay, if anything, you have to stop and question. Okay, and at least say, well, I don't know. There's no direct evidence that these things came from outer space. Well, actually, there is a direct evidence that these things come from outer space, right? Because they have satellite tracking systems, that track these things from space. And the Spy 1 radar on the USS Princeton warship, okay, track these objects flying at 80,000 feet. 80,000 feet is lower space, okay? And they come down from 80,000 feet to sea level and back up again, okay? And they keep doing that for like weeks on end. So we know that that's a fact, okay? That is a fact. Now, how do you interpret that fact? That's up to you. Some people say it's a drone, okay? How does a drone do that? A drone is nothing but an aircraft, okay? That is not inhabited by humans. There's no humans inside the drone. The drone can be as big as anything, A 747 can be a drone if it's remotely controlled. Okay, so that's what a lot of people understand when they think about drone. They think about the the little drone, the camera, drone that people remote control, that they fly around with full propellers and it goes and flies around. That's all they know, and so they think, wow, it's those things. No, drones use propellers, right? And propellers do not work at high altitude because the air is so thin that you can spin the propeller all you want, it just does not create lift. Okay, and there's a limit to how fast a propeller-driven craft can go. Doesn't matter how big or small. Okay, for example, propeller airplanes, unless they go in a dive, cannot break the sound barrier. Okay, at level flight, at sea level, cannot, because of the physics involved in the propeller. Okay, these things are known to fly, from 0 to 60 miles an hour in like less than a minute, and can go from sea level to 80,000 feet in less than a second. Okay, there's no way a rocket engine can't do that. SpaceX can't do that. Okay, as high tech as people think SpaceX is, and SpaceX is very high tech for humans, yes, but again, SpaceX rockets still use Newton's third law of motion, one of the two principles I told you about. Okay, SpaceX still spew out rocket engine, right? Rocket exhaust in the back in order to push it forward, okay, or up. Okay, that's the only way we know how to lift something off the ground, either by rocket engine, jet engine, which use Newton's third law of motion, or Bernoulli's principle, which is a propeller that creates low pressure. Okay, and the difference in low pressure and high pressure lift the object off the ground. All right, if the propeller is horizontal, if you turn the propeller 90 degrees, it becomes vertical, then it pulls the craft forward, because of the difference in the air pressure. That's called Bernoulli's principle. Those are the only two principles we know of that we utilize to lift an object off the ground. We know of no other. Okay, UFOs don't fly like that. So that's why my conclusion is that UFOs are not built by humans. Okay, who built that? That's the question. Now we have to answer that. And what's the evidence? Okay, could be from outer space, from some creature that came from a different planet altogether, different solar system, maybe a different galaxy, or maybe there's a missing civilization on Earth that have lived under the ocean all these years. There's more ocean than there are land, right, on Earth. Most of the oceans are unexplored. We don't know everything about the ocean. It's kind of like alien to us anyways, especially deep ocean. Never been there, so how do you know these creatures didn't live down there? They lived there for 65 million years, and sometimes they come up. In fact, if that's the case, then I think that they have something to do with our evolution. They come up and they abduct some of us, and they insert genes. They manipulate our genes and put it back in the population, and then we go and we have offsprings that carry the new genes. In fact, Greg Braden, the scientist, a geologist, a degree geologist, has a whole series on that, on the manipulated genetic evolution, genetically manipulated. About 200,000 years ago, there's evidence that our genes were manipulated by something. It's not natural. Because they calculated the chance of that happening is so minuscule, it's just not possible. Something artificially accelerated our genetic development. Okay, now what is that thing? What is that? Could be, I bet you it has something to do with the flying saucers, guys. Wherever they come from. Either they come from outer space or they come from deep in the ocean. Okay? If they come from deep in the ocean, and we know that they can go into space, they spacefaring, right? Because we observe them, we actually detect their ship going into space. Okay, so they know how to go. They know how to get into space. Okay, because 65 million years of evolution, as opposed to what, 4 million years at most for humans. Come on, who's more advanced? They are much more advanced than we are. That's for sure. Okay, so yeah. So bottom line is, it could be the explanation could be they came from Earth deep in the ocean, and that's why they look the way they do. But let's see. We got to keep an open mind. We got to demand that the government disclose all these evidence that come out, as we go into the future, and piece together and try to figure out what the heck, who built these things. We didn't do it. So with that, thank you for watching. Once again, use your brain. This is Logic Up. Use logic, logicize your way, using evidence as much as possible, and formulate the picture of the world based on those things. Don't listen to authorities, okay? Tom Campbell, the physicist Tom Campbell, said it best. He said, today's pastor, today's church is all the scientists, the physicists. You notice that? You notice that all advertisers, they always use science. They always mention science. Scientific studies have shown, and they always quote these scientists or scientific studies because they know that people believe that without question. So today, the scientists have become the church. People believe in scientists without even asking the question, and a lot of them do bad science. A lot of scientists, believe it or not, and this is a subject for another video that I will make, is that they too have biases. They too are narrow-minded, closed-minded. You would think that scientists are not closed-minded, but some of them are closed-minded, and I'll go into that in my next video. So with that, thank you, and I'll see you at the next video.